Hello, my name is Chris, and today I'd like to talk to you about dealing with bereavement and trauma when quitting smoking. But I'd like to do it a little differently and actually read to you the chapter that I wrote about this subject in my upcoming book called Quit Smoking and Be Happy. Over the last few videos that I've made, I've told you that the book is out in ebook format initially on Friday, November the 8th, and that it's currently available for pre-order using the links that are in the description below this video or by going to chrisscoyles.com/book. However, I haven't mentioned much about the content and about what is actually inside the book when you get it. So I figured the best way to share that information with you would be to quite literally read some of the book to you, which is what I'm going to do today, starting with chapter 20, which is about dealing with trauma and traumatic experiences, particularly about what we do when a loved one passes away. Someone that we care about dies or passes on, and we're in the middle of a quit, and it's like, oh my goodness, I can't cope with this, I need a cigarette. It is more intense than simply having a bad day. So this chapter talks about what is going on for us at that time and what we can do to get through it and to honour the memory of our loved ones without smoking. But I also like to think that the information in this chapter is just as valid for any kind of traumatic experience that you may be going through. I hope that you never need this chapter. I hope that you and your loved ones are all safe and well. However, if something does happen, I also hope that the information in this chapter may just be helpful or perhaps bring you some comfort. This is Quit Smoking and Be Happy. Chapter 20, Dealing with Bereavement and Trauma. I could fill the entire contents of this book with different tips, tricks and techniques for facing life's day-to-day stresses without a cigarette. The kind of advice I may give you for dealing with a traffic jam or a terrible boss is hardly going to cut it when something really serious happens. There are those times when a loved one passes on. There are family emergencies, health scares, financial insecurities, and any number of other tragic and traumatic events that may occur in our lives. When they do occur, we quite often need to treat them differently from your run-of-the-mill bad day at the office. We need to come up with a strategy to cope with these major life events, particularly those life events which leave us feeling so emotionally distressed that we want to change the way we feel with cigarettes. Today we'll talk about the best way to devise that strategy and the reason why it's so important that we get through things like bereavement and major illnesses without lighting up. Before we do, however, let me say this. If you've reached this chapter because you are going through a traumatic time right now, then I am genuinely sorry to hear that. Although I can't possibly imagine exactly how you are feeling right now, I do understand all too well these big life-changing tragedies do cause a serious amount of emotional distress. And I also understand that in the heat of the moment, the temptation to smoke may be stronger than ever. However, I also understand that no amount of cigarettes in this world can heal or even numb that pain. If you take nothing else away from this chapter, heck, if you take nothing else away from this entire book, I want it to be that. Smoking never fixes anything. Smoking never heals anything. it only causes more damage and more pain. About 6 months after my last cigarette, I found myself in what was then the latest battle in an ongoing, seemingly never-ending war with my own depression. I was so sick that I was unable to work for months. As a consequence, I lost all of my business clients, I lost all of my savings, and was effectively broke. Just as I was starting to recover and fight my way back from that, a dear friend of mine passed away. A few weeks after my friend passed away, my paternal grandfather passed away. Then, a few weeks after my granddad passed away, my maternal grandmother passed away. To put it mildly, it was a very tough year. I'd love to tell you that I got through all of these things without ever once thinking about a cigarette, but that simply wasn't the case. The day that I found out that my friend David had died, I sat there for hours not knowing what to do. I felt somehow numb and in pain all at once. I felt raw and vulnerable, my head a mess of disbelief and confusion, my heart full of sadness, my very nervous system clawing at the underside of my flesh as though desperate for escape. In that moment, I would have given anything to have made all that stop. But even with my whole world upside down, I knew that giving up my freedom for a return to nicotine addiction was not going to cut it. I knew that I could smoke a whole packet of cigarettes and yet not one of them would heal that pain. Not a single cigarette would find its way deep enough into the part of my soul that feels grief and sorrow. And even if it did, there was nothing it could do to heal that sorrow when it got there. I also knew that smoking even one more cigarette would only cause me more misery, because at some point my emotional pain would begin to heal, but the shame, the remorse and the guilt of having relapsed would remain. I would have to combine all of this with the additional struggle of having to quit smoking all over again. I knew the harsh truth that a cigarette would not bring David back from the dead. Later, when they passed on, there would be no amount of cigarettes in the world capable of bringing my grandparents back to life, just as there are no amount of cigarettes that can turn bad news into good news or make a red light into a green light. I could smoke all day, sure, but I'd still have to go to my grandparents' funeral and deal with that reality. Besides, was I really going to disrespect their memory by using it as an excuse to physically harm myself? Heck no. I had to remember that David loved me, that my nan loved me, that my granddad loved me. If you've recently lost someone, I want you to remember that they loved you too. These people who love us wouldn't want to see us physically destroying ourselves, and they certainly wouldn't want to be the reason for that. Can you imagine if you got one last opportunity to come face to face with a loved one who had just passed on? Can you imagine if all you had to say to them was, "I love you, but I'm polluting my lungs, I'm ruining my life and increasing the risk that I'll get some horrible disease, and it's all your fault because you left me. What an awful thing to say. What an awful way to honour their memory, to blame them for our own self-destructive behaviour. If bereavement is something that you're dealing with right now, then you might find it helpful to complete the following simple exercise. This exercise is called Making Peace. To read through the instructions so that you know what you're doing, and when you're ready, begin. Number 1, close your eyes and take a deep, slow breath. Imagine your loved one standing before you. Imagine them looking just as they looked at a time when the two of you shared a moment of love or of happiness. You might see them smiling brightly, laughing, full of high spirits. Or you might just see them as kind and gentle, embracing as if they want to give you a hug. Take another deep, slow breath and stay with this image of your loved one. Really notice everything about them. Notice the way that they stand or sit. Notice what they're wearing, the way their lips move into a smile and the wrinkles on their forehead. Notice their presence, their energy. Notice how they make you feel. Notice how they seem to be surrounded by a calm, gentle sense of peace. Notice the way that they wear their hair and the way that they have about their person, that one thing that they never went without. Perhaps it's a pair of reading glasses, or a beloved pet, or their favourite cap. If you feel comfortable doing so, reach out and imagine holding hands with them. All the while, keep taking slow, deep breaths. Take a slow, deep breath. And when you are ready, say the following words, or something like them, in the same tone of voice that you would normally speak to them. Say, I love you. And because I love you, I'm going to make you proud. It really hurts that you've had to go. But I won't use you as an excuse to harm myself. No matter how painful this gets, I'm going to honour you by making the most of the precious time that I have on this earth and by being kind to myself. Take another deep breath and spend as much time as you need just being with this person. When you're ready, open your eyes again. If you like, go and relax for a while. Take a walk. Get some fresh air and come back to this chapter later. Because I know that was painful. I know that mixed up in this whole situation of grieving for your loved one, you probably felt as raw and vulnerable as I once did. You may feel anger, fear, and some intangible pain that no words could ever possibly describe. Yet I'd like to ask you if you can look through your tears, even for a moment, and find acceptance in the words that you just spoke to your loved one. Can you see how there's far more power in honouring their memory by staying true to your course than there ever could be by using that memory as an excuse to poison yourself. Remember, cigarettes only ever compound our misery. They never relieve it. And that's as true for bereavement as it is for other traumatic and emotionally distressing situations. Whatever it is that you are going through, there simply aren't enough cigarettes in the world to change it. You can smoke all day long, but at some point you will need to hold your head up and confront that reality. If not on an emotional level, then at least on a practical day-to-day level. Isn't it going to be so much better to do that without a body full of poison and a heart full of relapse-related remorse? Of course it is. But of course it's all well and good us agreeing that smoking is not the answer. When we take a deep breath and think about it, it makes a lot of logical sense. Still, let's be honest. Logic is rarely any comfort when we've taken such an emotional battering that we're left with thoughts like, what is the point in carrying on? What is the point in pushing on for the promise of some future joy if I don't get to share that joy with someone I love? What is the point in staying the course now that this terrible thing has happened which changes the course entirely? Life is never going to have any joy or meaning ever again, so what is the point in denying myself a cigarette? The point is that although these things may feel bleak and hopeless right now, they won't always feel this way. It's been a few years since David and my grandparents passed away. I still miss them. I still feel a certain sense of sadness when I realise that I can no longer just call them or go visit whenever I like. But that sadness is no longer overwhelming or debilitating. Today I'm happy and I enjoy my life because I know that that is what my loved ones would want for me. I can miss the people that I love while at the same time being at peace with the fact that they have passed on, and I can honour their memory by ensuring that I continue to make smart decisions about the precious limited time that I have here on this earth. Make no mistake about it, getting to this place of peace and acceptance and happiness would have been a lot harder if I had started smoking again. Not only would I have needed to go through all the discomfort of quitting smoking, but I'd have to carry with me all the emotional hangover related to my relapse. Thank goodness that I didn't have to do that. And neither do you. Time heals. Time heals isn't just a pretty saying that you can post on an Instagram meme. It's a universal truth. What's more, time heals much more quickly and much more completely if, instead of engaging in self-destructive behaviours, we process our grief in a way that is healthy and constructive. Here are a few suggestions on how to do that. Start a journal. Use your journal to pour out all of these thoughts and feelings that you're unable to say to another person. If a loved one has passed on, or even if they're still with us but you're not able to have the conversation with them that deep down you'd really like to have with them, use your journal to write a letter to them, or to imagine that conversation, write out the script. You can also use your journal to explore your fears and worries. Make lists of how you're going to deal with the practicalities of your situation. There are so many things you can do with a journal beyond simply writing a record of your day. I highly recommend the book The New Diary by Tristine Rayner for lots of helpful suggestions on using a journal as a therapeutic tool. Spend time with the loved ones around you. Make the most of the precious time you have with them and enjoy their company. Notice how good it feels to be fully present with them and not constantly thinking about when you can get away from them and nip out for a quick cigarette. Invest in self-care. Go dig out all the things that you put together when you were reading chapter 7 of this book, and spend some quality time on yourself. Allow yourself to rest, to heal, to cry, to do whatever you need to do to enjoy a moment's peace. I'd also like to take a moment to recommend 2 books on dealing with grief. It's Okay That You're Not Okay by Megan Devine, and A Grief Observed by C.S. Lewis. Take your power back. If you're not dealing with grief, but with some other tragedy or traumatic event, remember this. The thing or the person that has caused the situation you're distressed about has already wreaked enough havoc in your life. Are you really going to let them wreak even more? Are you going to allow this thing or this person to have power over you? To have the power to make you smoke and cause yourself harm? This is an extreme example, and I pray dearly that this never happens. But let's say that a drunk driver has caused an accident that left you or a loved one permanently injured. That person has already caused so much damage in your life and in the lives of those around you. To use them as the reason why you now smoke again is to give them an additional power over you that they don't deserve and have no right to. If you came face to face with this driver or with whatever situation has caused damage to your life, are you going to say, "You've already caused me irrevocable harm, and now I'm going to allow you to cause even more by giving you the power to make me smoke again. I'm going to make you the reason why I'm now choking myself, polluting myself, causing myself extra harm"? Are you going to say that? Or are you going to say, "You may have done some damage here, but somehow, in some way, myself and my family will heal and repair. In the meantime, I will not allow you to do any more damage to our lives. You have no more power over me. I have suffered enough, and I am going to go on my way towards the peace and happiness that I deserve." Please, I urge you, choose the latter. That is chapter 20, dealing with bereavement and trauma, from Quit Smoking and Be Happy. Available for pre-order now from the links in the description or from chrisscoyles.com/book. I hope you found that helpful or comforting in some way. Thank you so much for watching. As always, to join a community of like-minded people who are all supporting each other through their quit smoke journey, please do come and join us at Finding Freedom. We are on Facebook, facebook.com/groups facebook.com/findingfreedom1. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you again for all of your support. I will see you next time. Goodbye.